Welcome everybody to our monthly meeting. Just as a reminder, we'll be recording the Zoom meeting today and it will be available on the APA website. If you don't want to appear in the video, please contact or email Taylor, our tech guru. For Zoom participants, please post your questions or comments in the chat and we will be sure to ask the speaker your questions. First, we'd like to recognize any new members or first-time attendees. So first, starting in the room, do we have anybody who is new to APA?
I'm gonna make a stand up.
Yeah. I have attended one meeting before online, but I'm here in person for the first time. My name's Kate. Yes. Thank you. I'm a social worker. I work primarily psychotherapy for people with brain injuries. This is the work that I do. So for a couple of different.
You have to speak up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the
Sorry.
Al's got to hear you.
Sorry. Social worker, live in Arvada across the street from Taylor and Mavis. I work as a psychotherapist for people with brain injuries, have a business supporting people with concussions. So that's kind of my jam.
Well, welcome.
So thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Thank you.
Kate, did you get to sign in?
I didn't, but I will.
Thanks.
Yeah. I don't see anyone else. On Zoom. Phyllis, I know who you are, but I'm not sure the rest of the group knows you. Can you hear us? If you have to unmute yourself.
We can hear you.
Do you want to talk, Phyllis? Just tell us who you are. I see Cheryl on there. I know, Cheryl, have you been to meetings before? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Can everyone online hear us? Yeah.
Yeah, Harriet introduce. I see some heads nodding.
This is so weird. Okay.
I don't know, Carly, do you know that?
Yeah, Carly's on.
Okay.
I can hear you. Thanks, guys.
Hi, Carly.
Hi, Carly.
70%.
Kind of, yeah. She's signing in, so I'm maybe. She's been to one meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I won't take any more time, but welcome everybody, new and old. I don't think we have any elected officials or candidates, is that right? So we just ask that when you do speak, you pay attention to our timekeeper, the wonderful Pat Malone right here, who does a great job for signals. And we should take just a couple of minutes at the beginning of the meeting to say what gives you hope or what keeps you up awake at night. I'll try not to be political, so I won't say what the good thing that gave me hope was that somebody was held accountable for their actions over the last week. But I think you all know what I'm talking about. Would anyone else like to speak either? What gives you hope or what keeps you awake at night? And
I have an item,
oh yeah, Taylor.
and I'll share it too. So you may have noticed in the Arvada press that there was a very interesting article about Arvada City Council adopting the Housing Strategic Plan. So we shall see to what extent this helps with affordable housing, but I think it's certainly a good step in the right direction. Now, the other thing I would like to point out that quoted extensively in this article is a certain individual that we know. I can find it here someplace. Mindy Moore,
Yes.
a member of the Arvada Housing Authority, pushing back against John Marion. Now, I would also like to say in the spirit of political comity, that I would like to say something that John Marriott said that I actually agree with. And that is that the city of Arvada should try and make housing more affordable for everybody. Should make it easier to build housing, all housing. So at least on that point, we have an area of agreement. So that gives me hope.
I was in that meeting. It was really cool to see you guys spar.
Exhausting.
You held it, you know. John doesn't let up, and neither did you, and it was really interesting to watch.
He's a worthy adversary, let me put it that way.
And he probably says the same of
He
you.
does. I will tell you, he does.
Is there anyone online who'd like to say what gives them hope or keeps them awake at night? Raise your hand sometime. Oh, yeah, Carly.
You know, listening to you guys talk, it makes me think that both what gives me hope and keeps me up at night is that everybody seems to be extremely concerned about these issues. They are crises, but nobody can agree on solutions. And so I think that is very hopeful for us, but it is an area where I think we need to work to build bridges. So I will be quiet. And I obviously have my camera off because I'm in my corner, so.
Thanks, Carly. And it's either Harriet or Jeff has their hand up.
Yeah, I'm the one that did it. And I just want to mention that the Arvada, again, our piece of Arvada news, the Arvada is starting to work on its very first climate action plan this Wednesday with the Arvada Sustainability Committee and a couple of other people. And we shall see how that goes. But that one took forever to get around people like the aforementioned Mr. Marriott. But the city council is now supportive and off we go. So
Great. Thanks, Harriet. We had a 4-minute limit, everyone.
Oh, you know what? You're so fascinating. I wasn't keeping track. It's
Elliot Hood just joined under my name, but he wanted to address, he's a candidate.
Who is it?
Elliot Hood.
Oh,
Elliot, are you?
Elliot, did you want to speak?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm on the road to Palisade, Colorado for a Colorado Democratic Party event. I'm running statewide. So this is one of the privileges of running statewide. You get to go to beautiful places like Palisade and do Democratic events. But I just wanted to join you all quickly and just introduce myself, introduce my race and who I am and why I think you should support me. So I am running for the CU Board of Regents, the at-large seat on the CU Board of Regents, which is the only statewide race this year in Colorado. It's one of the most important public education leadership jobs in the whole state. I am a very proud CU grad. I'm a former public school teacher. I'm a former education nonprofit director, and I'm an education attorney that represents public school districts, including Jeffco. And I work very closely with elected boards on a variety of policy and legal issues. I've stood up in court and defended anti-racism and gender inclusion policies. I've stood up in court to defend masking and other public health protocols during the pandemic. And I've also worked to help educators do their jobs better and make sure that they're serving kids as effectively as they possibly can. My big priorities as regent will be, number one, we've got to reduce the cost of an education. At CU, kids are taking out too much debt to finance a degree, and we need to work on that. Two, we've got to get guns out of our classrooms and ban concealed carry at CU once and for all. Number three, we've got to take bolder action on climate. Just like the young lady was just saying about Arvada's climate plans, CU has not been aggressive enough on climate. We need to commit to carbon neutrality as a system. We're the third largest employer in the state. We've got to stand up for collective bargaining rights for our workers, and we've got to build the most diverse and inclusive campuses we possibly can. And as I said, I'm running for CU Regent, Elliot Hood. You've got your primary ballots. We are the only statewide race on the primary ballot. And I am thrilled to be supported by Democrats across Jeffco and across Colorado. And I would love your support in this election. And remember, if you turn in your ballots now, we can count that. It'll streamline all of that for the Secretary of State's office, and you guys can avoid getting phone calls and texts from people like me. So happy to answer any questions. Happy to answer any questions.
We
Oh, yeah,
maybe another time we'll do that.
Can't
But
do
thank you.
questions,
Yeah.
but thank you for coming, Elliot.
We appreciate it. Take care.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Just briefly, we collect donations to help pay for renting the space, our Zoom subscription, our website, our email accounts, and occasionally events. You're going to hear about a fun one next month in just a minute. So thank you for the many donations that came in, especially the month of May, because we had a cash matching program with Indivisible. So I'll just start, if you just don't mind passing it through the line thanks. And then we just briefly have each of our action team leads say just for up to 2 minutes, a brief action report. And I think Julie is going to go first to talk about our next social event, which is really exciting.
And I will actually keep track of time. Hi, I'm Julie. I'm Social Connections Coordinator. Next month, our meeting is actually going to be a picnic. It's our annual picnic. We get together. It's going to be at Memorial Park, which is just north of City Hall. It does not have regular bathrooms, but it does have porta potties. We have it all day. So if people want to go down early to play with, at the parks and such, but we're going to officially start at 4 and go till 6. We as APA will be providing meat and meat alternative, buns, condiments. We ask you to bring a dish to share as well as your own plate, cup, fork, spoon, knife, so we can keep the waste down. Also we will have a beer permit. So if you would like to bring a beverage of choice, we will also provide water, maybe some lemonade or soda. But if you want anything other than that, please bring it. If you have any questions, yes, Bob. Oh, thank you. July 14th, it's a Sunday from 4 to 6. We will have that information on Facebook. If you have any questions, just reach out. We had our monthly book club, The Water Dancer, and not very many people could attend. So we're going to have a same book. It will be June 18th from 6:30 to 8 at my house, which is 7070 Tabor Court. I don't know if you want to put that in the chat. But it is a very good book. It was very nice to sit and talk about, and I would love to sit and talk about it again. It is supposed to be 90 degrees that day. So if it's cooler than that, we'll probably be in the backyard. If it's that hot, we will be in the house. And we will not be having a book club in July. We're taking the month off, and then we'll start again in August. Thank you.
Actually, so just, we normally meet on Saturdays, but this picnic is actually a Sunday. It's the day after our Arvada on Tap. That's why we moved it to the Sunday in July. Thank you. It's confusion.
Because we'll be tabling at Arvada.
Yes.
So if you are at Arvada on Tap, come say hi. Okay, I'm actually gonna read from the Colorado PTA newsletter for the education update. So I might look at you for John. Who, Evie? Yeah. So for education team update, I'm Alice Phipps. I oftentimes I'm like, I don't really have a lot to say. But I've been following Don, who's are you on the legislative committee for the Colorado PTA?
Colorado PTA's Director of Legislative Engagement.
Yeah. So they have been sending out some great newsletters and information on ballot initiatives to watch and to keep track of. And so just some that are collecting signatures right now. So they're not necessarily going to be on the ballot, but we're just keeping an eye on, and I will send this all out in an email too, because it's hard to remember initiative numbers. But it's ones that the PTA has taken a position to oppose, and that's Evie Hudak and with helping the whole PTA. Is initiative 108, property valuation assessments, initiative 138, school choice K through 12, and initiative 142, parental notification of gender incongruence. This one's really bizarre. It's requiring teachers or any school official to notify the parents within 24 hours if their students are not
Not even just school officials, volunteers,
Just
anybody
anybody.
even remotely affiliated with the school.
If their child is not conforming with their gender, which is just a bizarre thing to have, like tattle on any child that's like, maybe doesn't. Does acting however they want to act in school. So, yeah, I will email this all out, so I don't have a ton of time, but these are all ones, if you see people collecting signatures, don't sign it. We don't want it on ballot, like, just don't even, engage. It doesn't need to be on ballot. And then the only one we are supporting, or they are supporting right now, which I am supporting, would be firearms and ammunition exercise tax. And I'm assuming I'll link to all of these to say like a little bit more information about that.
That one's already on the ballot. So
It's already on
I know none that are collecting signatures. And this is my personal opinion, not PTA's. Some PTAs taking a position on all. Any that are collecting signatures right now, as far as I know, are not.
Yeah, okay, so don't sign anything that's education related to be on collection signatures. And that's the education update, but I will also email that out because that was a lot. And then for communications team update, I'm moving into a new team. Not much to update. I've got two wonderful women helping me with the newsletter. Pat is doing, Robin is still helping me, and Jackie Riviera. And they're helping with the newsletter. Pat has been creating some events. She's been doing great on Facebook events. You created the postcard event. You did a great job. So I'm appreciating all the help. And if anybody wants to get involved with writing the newsletter, sending out the newsletter, or creating Facebook groups, or Facebook events, get in touch with me. And that's it for me.
Happy you're next.
And I'm gonna speak up into the hour. Kathy Blake, Healthcare Action Team Leader. Our team advocates for a publicly financed, privately delivered healthcare system universal healthcare system in Colorado and nationwide. We are disappointed that House Bill 1075 did not, it was killed by Senate leadership. There's more to that story, even though a majority of legislators were in favor, and most of this, well, there's more. Anyway, thank you for your support and helping push that bill. We're going to continue to spread the word and increase the momentum with grassroots activities. I can't talk. Okay, APA is partnering with Colorado Foundation for Universal Healthcare to get a booth at the Arvada on Tap, which is July 13th. Hope to see you guys there. Also, Arvada Days on August 24th. So our next meeting is going to be Saturday, June 15th at 4 p.m. on Zoom for more info. And we are the coalition. APA is part of the coalition of a whole bunch of other groups. And we're trying to get more groups that are supporting universal single payer healthcare. And we also have a list of things that people and other groups are doing out over the state in order to promote universal single payer healthcare. One of those things, and Taylor, I went to Lisa Ferret's campaign kickoff, and I talked to her, and she was willing to come to one of our healthcare meetings, and we're going to set that up so that we can explain to her about healthcare, universal healthcare. And yeah, and I also talked to Rachel Zenzinger and Sarah Gallardi, who came to one of our meetings. And if you guys want to hear all the scoop on all that, come to the meeting. Thank you.
Kathy, you should ask Lisa about her recent surgery on her hands.
Yeah,
She had to have surgery on her thumbs.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
She broke both of her thumbs.
What happened?
The ski accident, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Oh.
I'm Darlon, and I'm the Climate Action Team Lead. And I just want to thank Harriet for mentioning the Climate Action Plan kickoff that's going to be happening on Wednesday at 5:30 at City Hall. And I'll send out information about how you can be involved with the climate action plan. I'm also happy to announce that the Jefferson counties, they put out their sustainability awards, and the Geos neighborhood got the sustainability award for 2024 for sustainable business. We're gonna have a potluck at Geos on June 29th at 1 p.m. So I'll send out information about that. I think that would be a great opportunity for folks to come and meet my neighbors at Geos and get their perspective on what it's like living at Geos. And also we could kick off ideas about how to get composting going even before the climate action plan is enacted. There's going to be a lot of hurdles to jump before the city has a citywide composting plan, but there's a lot that we can do to get composting in our schools, to get composting in our neighborhoods. So that would be an opportunity for us to share some ideas about that. I also wanted to mention that Excel is going to be looking for communities to apply by September to have network geothermal pilots. And they're going to pay for all the geothermal drilling and all the ground source heat pumps. They're looking for about 100 homes. So the City of Arvada is invited to apply on behalf of these communities that are interested to be considered for this pilot program. As well, there's a House Bill 1370 that was passed by the state legislature, which empowers the Colorado Energy Office to have 5 more communities, just like the Excel Network Geothermal Pilot Program. So there could be 6 communities within the next year that would have something like this to help them decarbonize and move away from gas. Yes, Allison?
So when you say communities, do you have to get like a certain number of your neighbors to like sign on to it to become like a neighbor, like to be part of the program?
No, you just have to get, you just have to throw your community in the hat for City of Arvada and put in the reasons why you think your community would be a good applicant.
But what if Allison's the only house that wants to do it in a 10-street radius? Is that a community?
Yes, that is. It's just a matter of why you think your community is a good fit for that.
I have an HOA, but like, I'm just like, do I get my HOA on board or I don't know, but yeah, I'm curious. I'm interested.
Okay.
I'll talk to you more about that.
Sounds like we have a subject for one of our next monthly meeting.
Darlon, are you working with Randy Moorman since he works for recycling and composting up in Bolden?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if Randy can make it for the June 29th meeting.
He needs to be the sponsor of what you do.
Yeah.
Mindy Moore, Affordable Housing, Taylor already did a great intro. Things are looking up. Well, I'll keep you posted. I don't want to take up a lot of time now because I'm really excited about the main content of our meeting today. I'd like to introduce Michael Griffith.
Excuse me.
Oh.
I'm supposed to give an announcement for Joyce.
Oh, I apologize.
And I will time myself.
We trust you.
So Joyce and Harriet started a group who we write postcards every other Sunday, and we've been doing this for about six events. And our next one is next Sunday, a week from tomorrow. It's at the Arvada Library from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And we get the postcards. We pay for the postcards. We pay for the stamps. It's not cheap. We take up a collection from whoever's there or whoever wants to donate specifically to that. Stamps are going up. So, but we get them from Blue Wave, which is a local area organization, and it's to swing states. So I believe the next one is going to Ohio, and they're pre-printed. So anybody who's ever written postcards knows that, oh my God, you know, it can take a lot of effort and you got to focus or you write the wrong thing. So here you write one line, we slap on a label that they have provided and a stamp, which we have provided. And that's it. So what's great about it is we get a chance to talk to each other. And several of you I see here have done this, and it's great when you show up. So if, a week from Sunday is Father's Day, but Stacy Lyles, who's very invested in this also, is bringing his mom, bringing his wife. One of them, he brought his kid. So it is a Father's Day event. You can teach your kids about how important activism is. So I hope that you will put it on your calendar for either a week from Sunday, the 16th, or 2 weeks later. That's it. Thank you. And I did it on time.
I was gonna pull one.
Okay, so Michael Griffith, our keynote speaker, is chair of the Arvada Planning Commission and member of APA. He's worked for over 15 years as a licensed landscape architect, urban designer, and Mike has consistently led innovative thinking in public spaces. His hands-on approach to complex infrastructure projects has helped clients succeed across the Front Range. His expertise lies in practical solutions for mobility, green infrastructure, and community resiliency. He's a proven track record in project management and design leadership, delivering conceptual studies to final implementation. And some of the projects that Michael has led include Sloan's Lake development, the Brighton Boulevard redevelopment, Federal Boulevard Greenway, Alameda Underpass study, the Gregor Square redevelopment, and the 16th Street Mall development. He's deeply committed to community service. Not only has he been the chair of the Planning Commission, but he's chair of Arvada's Board of Adjustment and a member of the Board of Directors for the Old Town Business Improvement District. So Mike is looking forward to having an open discussion this afternoon on development, advocacy, the future of our city, where all should feel welcome to grow and thrive. And I'm turning it over to Mike now.
Thank you. Thank you. Very happy to be here. Thank you for that, Mindy. Today I was just outside as Mike the gardener. So hearing the long list is kind of funny, but I don't know if you've had a chance to enjoy the weather yet, but it's absolutely amazing. And I was just talking to some folks that came in early. We have a huge garden every year. My wife, I've got 3 kids, and we're all out there playing in the soil every year. And this year we had a couple of things happen that prevented us from getting started as early as we like to. So we're out there trying to get it done, and every other thing that normally happens in the summer has been truncated. And so it's like an accordion where it all folds in on itself. But anyway, I encourage you all to get outside and spend as much time as you can in the nice weather. So I'm here to talk to you about development in Arvada. I think the main point of this conversation is to make it to where it's kind of two ways. So it's not just me talking at you. I'm happy to take questions along the way. So if something's confusing, or if you'd like to kind of dive in, or even a specific example of something that doesn't make sense, I'm happy to kind of do that as we go along. I've been meeting with Mindy for, I guess, about a year now, here and there, and we've been talking about frustrations that we both have with the development process of the city. And some of the things that happen just kind of seem to pop out of nowhere. And one of the things that we've discussed is that there's this long process that leads to a project actually being built. Once the shovel goes in the ground, that's the end of a very long journey that has been usually taken place for a year or more. And so Mindy very kindly asked me if I'd speak with you and maybe make this a little bit of an opportunity to demystify some of the things that happen with development in the city. In addition to kind of the general discussion that I'm going to lead up here, I've got a couple of websites that are available to anybody that wants to look at kind of the resources that are available for the city and kind of what's being built and where. And then maybe more importantly than that, the rules. So there are rules that govern what's built, how it's built, where it's built, what it ultimately will be. And then what happens when a project, and then when I say project, I'm talking this could be residential, this could be commercial, this could be a retail, it could be an entire district, it could be a road, a piece of infrastructure, literally anything that's constructed. Where are all these projects kept, right? And how are they managed? And what does it look like start to finish? And if one of these projects that you happen to see or have questions about, you don't like, how do you get involved? And how do you have your voice heard? Because this is your city. I would imagine the APA members are all Arvada residents. Maybe that's an incorrect assumption, but I figure that's probably a safe one. So where I'd like to start is basically the way a project moves through a permit application into permit acceptance, into construction, and then ultimately being built. And that's different depending on the type of project. So if it's a public project, public infrastructure, then it goes through an internal city process, right? Because there's no private developer or entity that's pushing that forward. So a roadway, a park, or something that's funded by the city. The other process is if something's private. So private development, shopping center, apartments, single family homes. Those all go through a permit review process. Now, what's interesting is in either case, there can be certain things that are not in direct compliance with the code. So those are the rules. The land development code, the main rules by which everything is constructed in the city. That's the high order sort of thing that has a real specific level of detail on what you can and cannot build, and to what level of quality and what materials and all that. The other document is the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is in some ways very aspirational. It says these are the things that we as a city would like to see. But included in the comprehensive plan is our zoning map. And so that's the zoning map for the entire city. And this is the part that I get really excited about, because the Arvada that exists today is represented to a degree in our zoning map, but it also plans for the future. So in the zoning map is a complete build out of the city of Arvada. Anything you could possibly build. When I say thing, I mean the type of building. So the terms I'm going to use are very close to Sim City, if you've ever played that computer game, right? Everything is divided between like residential, commercial, and retail. Similar. So that zoning map is filled, and it's going to say this area can be light industrial. And you had those conversations whenever Amazon was here, right? This area can be residential, and this is a buffer zone between commercial and retail, and this area can be this, right? So all that's predetermined, but it doesn't necessarily represent what's here today. It's aspirational, and it changes, usually every 10 years. So the land development code is usually pretty fixed. It does get updated, but it has to do with what you can specifically build. The comprehensive plan says if we build everything like we'd like it to be built, it would look like this across the city with a certain amount of usage with each kind of type of development. Go ahead.
It'd be helpful to, if Taylor could bring those up quickly,
Yes.
like the website that shows the map of the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
I think that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, and this is all, I guess, a prelude to that. So a couple of websites that I have already set up here, and Taylor, I'm fine if you want to share that with the group, because I'll refer to it and they might not have time to write it down. But let's maybe pull up the comprehensive plan link that I sent you. So the comprehensive plan was written in 2014. Things have changed. It's been 10 years. Usually those are updated every 10 years. So the timer's dinging right now. And another reason why it's good to have a conversation about how development happens is the comprehensive plan is due for rewrite, which means our aspirational goals across the city may have changed in 10 years. So this should be the PDF. There you go. So there's the comprehensive plan document, and there's that city constructions map. I don't know if I sent you the specific PDF for the comp plan map, but it should be on that page. Let's see. So if comprehensive plan, maybe off to the left. See, comprehensive plan, scroll down there in the menu. The map, the comprehensive plan maps. There you go. So 2014, 2024, it's time to update. Without knowing exactly when that's going to happen, I know that conversations are being held with the city manager, Laura Gillis, and city council on exactly what that process is going to look like. I think it's going to start in 2025. I don't know that for sure. It really should, in my opinion. But it provides an opportunity to start to talk about where we have certain types of density. How does sustainability get rolled into it? We've had a lot of conversations about the GEOS community and some of the things that are working really well there that are not typically accepted in code. Why? You know, we can have all those conversations at the comprehensive level, a comprehensive plan level. There you go. There's our map. So that's our city. That's Arvada. It's off to the side there and kind of small, but we're going to make sure that you have all these links. This is really cool to look at because you can see what is open space, what's public, what's private, Where are there industrial centers? It actually has a specific use type for urban centers or mixed use or like higher density developments. And that's what the city thinks makes sense. And it's based on how things are working today. So obviously Old Town Arvada is pretty dense. It's an urban center within Arvada. But there are growing urban centers that could be expanded upon. And this map takes that into account from the knowledge that we had in 2014. Right, so it can be updated. We can start to see the city differently. Now, the comprehensive plan makes certain assumptions about what type of development will actually be in place by the time the plan needs to be updated. Within the city of Arvada, there's a department, long-range planning department. Patty McCartney, Rob Smetana, and others worked very hard to project what the population of the city might be 10, 20, 30 years out, and what type of infrastructure and development might need to happen to facilitate that. And so I'm throwing a lot at you, and at any point in time, raise your hand if you want to elaborate on something, but otherwise I'll continue. So Patty and Rob are thinking about how the population is going to grow and thinking about how employment opportunities might change. At one point in time, when we were talking about Jefferson Parkway, right? West Arvada was going to be like the tech center. I mean, that was really the thinking, that there would be like towers in the park and people would commute out to West Arvada from like Aurora or maybe even south of Denver. And they would go to these big towers and they'd work there and create a huge economic engine for the city. And then they would go back, or maybe they'd live somewhere in Arvada. But either way, that never really happened. So projections change. And they change all the time. Go ahead.
Has that parkway, has that gone away, or is it still trying to revive itself?
You know, it's always worth asking that question to see if there's like some conversation happening in the back room. To date, as far as I know, it's pretty heavily stalled based on the lawsuit. So there's a legal situation that has arisen. One of the partners backed out, and it's muddy. But I will tell you the Jefferson Parkway has been on drawings for the city of Arvada since the late 60s. So if it's gone, it doesn't seem to be gone forever. It's like, that's the only thing I can say about it. But either way, it doesn't seem to make any sense for something like that, a major, very expensive piece of infrastructure, if you don't have the corresponding jobs that we were originally planning for when there was a tech center-like part of Arvada in the west end of the city. So that's why I think that's a really good example. These things change. Our assumptions change based on reality and sort of how things actually get built and trends. Go ahead, Bob.
Which agency or commission gets involved with applying demographics in terms of the aging of the population?
Can the folks hear us on Zoom, or does Bob need to speak up?
How does age and the general age of the population get applied to your planning process so that you know you're dealing with older people, and so there may not be as high of a turnover with housing stock, and what does that do with entry level people who can't get into affordable housing?
That's a really good question, and it's one that's brought up in conversations that I'm a part of with the city, and I know it's something that the city's considering because we do have an aging population in the city of Arvada. A lot of the material, the data that's used comes from US Census, American Community Survey is another one, but there's data sources that are pulled to kind of figure out what are the demographics of the city and how that might impact mobility and movement between, empty nesters wanting to sell their home and move into something smaller, not being able to find anything because it doesn't exist. I think the housing committee, and Mindy, I know that you have this conversation in the housing committee, is probably the group that's looking at it more intensely. Within the city, the planning department does look at it. I don't know exactly what their process is for applying that to changes directly to the comprehensive plan. But when a comprehensive plan like ours is rewritten, it will absolutely be a factor because it's one of the things that defines our city.
And that's where public input is gonna be
Yes.
so important when they do start modifying this comprehensive plan, which hopefully will be in the budget for starting in 2025. But, go ahead, Taylor.
So Carly has her hand up in Zoom. And you need to unmute. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't mean to be so grumpy. I went to the disposition meeting for Thompson Elementary. And so many folks in that room kept bringing up this idea that we all trusted the school board when they said invest in our schools, and we increased our property taxes, which reduced affordability. And then mere years later, we were told by the same entity, how stupid could you have been to have listened to us? And so I guess for me, there's a couple pieces that I want to tease out. One is there's just so little trust in any of this process. And there really is just a sentiment. I used to work for a developer, so I'm guilty here as well. But there really is a sentiment that a lot of these things are getting pushed through because it is folks who are campaign contributors to some politician, and it's not necessarily good development. And I think what I find super concerning when I look at these maps is the reality that income limited seniors and working class families like mine are never going to be able to pay as much tax as some of these new developers coming in, some of the new residential coming in. And it really does feel like we are developing for a future without folks like us in mind. And I think it's really, really sad that we seem to be developing. I'm from Colorado, so we've always had people come in. We've always had development coming. It seems more and more like we are not developing for our community. We are cannibalizing our community by development. And I was wondering if you might be able to speak to that, especially within the context of this legislative session where the governor and the Democrats really kind of stepped in and said, the problem for affordable housing is the municipalities. It is you guys' fault. It's not the reality that it's expensive to build ADUs, right? And then we saw what happened in North Glen. And so I feel like this question of who gets to be the decider is really hanging out there for community members, because there's a real sentiment that none of this matters because it's already signed, sealed, and delivered. I will shut up there. And I don't mean to be so grumpy, but I've been to a lot of meetings lately where folks are feeling pretty grumpy.
Yeah, Kelly, thank you for your question. I'll do my best to address it. I think, is it fair to say that a lot of folks feel similarly to that?
Yeah.
Okay. I am with you on that, and I totally understand where it comes from, and I understand why it's there. So a couple things. One, when projects make it into a public arena where decisions are being made. So Kelly, you mentioned decisions and feeling like, we just don't really have we don't have any power. When we go to a meeting, we feel like it's already been decided. And I can totally understand feeling as though it's been decided based on some sort of quid pro quo sort of thing. You help me, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. I get that. I totally do. A couple things about that. One, the projects that make it to a public arena, whether it be for planning commission where I sit or city council for the final decision, we just make recommendations to city council, planning commission. Those projects have gone through a very specific review process. It's the same for any applicant with the city to be found in compliance with the land development code, the comprehensive plan, and any other supplemental documents, because there are always supplemental documents for specific sub-area plans and things. That process has usually taken about a year or more, and usually $1 million or more has been spent by the applicant. That does not mean they're entitled to anything. It just means that they've gone through a process following the city documents. It's sort of a contract, right? So we have laws, you obey the laws, because they exist, you know what they are, they're the rules, right? So applicants have gone through this long process, and it doesn't include, if it's in a public review, a public meeting. Unfortunately, Kelly, those public meetings are limited by the code to be within 1,000 feet of the actual developments. That doesn't mean the entire city has been made aware. So that can feel like, wow, where did this come from? I live 1,002 feet from this development. I wasn't aware. But my point is, by the time it's gotten to that stage, there's so much momentum behind it. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to be approved. We turn down stuff all the time on planning commission, and occasionally city council turns down projects too. But the point is, it's not the first time that this project is being discussed, but it feels like that to the public because you're there and you're like, hey, I just got a notice and I don't agree with whatever's being built. It doesn't fit what I think we should have in my city, or it's directly near my house and it's going to ruin some aspect of my life. I hear that all the time and I totally understand it. In my opinion, I think that there is a fundamental disconnect between what the public understands the process is, and what is happening behind the scenes. And it makes it hard for the impact and the public's opinions and thoughts and kind of reactions to these projects. 10 minutes, to actually translate into real action. In public meetings, Kelly, this is probably the meat of what I'm responding with here. In public meetings, decisions are made based on strict criteria. And a lot of times we review a project and it's, we'll get comments based on the merits of that particular developer or that business or the type of development. But we have a list of specific approval criteria. It's like A through E. And it has to either be deficient or comply with those specific items. And especially on planning commission, if we are turning down a project, we have to say why. It is deficient on one of those specific items. It can't be related to any other area, feeling, or thought. And the information that we receive from the public on planning commissions, it's true of city council too, really should only be considered for new material facts that are relevant to those approval criteria. So they have to be new information. Go ahead, Bob.
Is there a priority that you use in judging when to deny something? What are the kinds of criteria that you would most impressed with to say, we hadn't thought about that, you're right, we'll let the table this or whatever?
So that it's specific to the type of modification that's being requested. So I'll add on to that. This will probably help clarify. And it's government, so it's more complicated than it needs to be. Most of the projects that the city sees are approved administratively. So over 100 projects a year get permits, major big projects, and they are going into the exact place in the comprehensive plan map that type of use is supposed to go. And they meet the land development code perfectly. There's no variation. So it's just.
So you never see them.
We never see it. And so the community never sees it. So that's most of the development in the city. So when people say, look, it feels like we're building a lot in Arvada, we're choking out our resources, land resources. We are building a lot in Arvada. And you don't see a lot of it because it matches our comprehensive plan and it matches the land development code. When a project is more than 20% out of compliance with anything like the size of a fence, the size of the building, the parking or the density, anything, then it has to go through a public process. And that's when we see it on planning commission and then city council. So you're only seeing like 6% of what's actually being put through a permit process. And the criteria is specific. Sorry. Go ahead.
So we have actually several comments coming in. Hallie has made several comments, and I'm wondering if you would like to speak.
Sure.
You also need to unmute.
Hi, this is Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Hi. Thanks for paying attention to the chat, Taylor. I appreciate it. You'll find comments in the chat from myself and also from my sister. And some of these comments are specific to the In-N-Out Burger project at 52nd and Wadsworth, which we found out about by accident. And as you noticed my chat, I was just writing another one that said that in surveying the current tenants of Arvada Marketplace, where In-N-Out Burger goes, or is going to go, is well underway. None of them knew about it. And some of them are going to be profoundly impacted by this project. So I'm curious, for one thing, how seriously the planning board takes its duty to inform people who are going to be affected. Second point, I think people who are further distant from the project also need to be informed. This project, again, specifically the In-N-Out Burger project, affects the entire Columbine area neighborhood, east of Wadsworth, west of Marshall, north of 52nd. It's going to change traffic enormously. It's going to make Wadsworth northbound more dangerous. There are several factors there. A third point I made is not specific to this project, but does have to do with things like the affordable housing issue. I learned from someone who currently lives on the grounds of the stables at about 58th, just east of 93, that is in Arvada, that those stables, that whole area, and I don't know exactly the acreage, that's going to be plowed under. And the houses going to be built there start at approximately $750,000. That is not what Arvada needs at all. So
Yeah, I think
okay.
that last one might actually be outside of the city. But sorry, go ahead and finish if you had one more question.
No, not another question, but I think that somehow the planning process needs to be a bit more holistic, if that's possible. One of the things that perked up my ears was your comment that at 1,000 feet within a project, within the distance of a project, people are notified, and not beyond that. But if this is a town, we are a little bit more incorporated than that. And therefore, there needs to be a wider acknowledgement of the impact on people who are maybe more than 1,000 feet distant. And I think also.
Thank you, Hallie.
I don't know.
Sure. Okay.
I think that's a really important comment that I think a lot of people would agree with. And whenever we're looking at updating comprehensive plan and code, that should be brought up because it's frustrating, right? Especially if you have like a big street or something or public land next to you and then your house and you're at 1,001 feet.
Yeah.
We actually do that issue a lot. So real quick, the planning board doesn't, we don't actively do anything beyond be a part of the planning meetings. We're all volunteer members. This isn't actually our job. We were appointed by previous commissions or current commissioners through a vetting process because of our knowledge and background. So we don't set policy around outreach. I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think we could do a better job as a city informing the public on projects that may impact them. In 2020, there's one of my links, which will be Taylor's going to send out to the group. The city initiated an online interactive map that you can see projects that are either in application state or in construction state or completed. So that helps. But I think we could always do a better job informing the public. It's not a perfect process. I mean, we really rely on, the city relies on feedback from the community members to understand where priorities are and where the city's missing. And I think everything that I'm hearing today is well known and has been talked about in depth with the city. And I think will be incorporated substantially in the update to the comp plan, whenever that is.
And we had several questions about housing. Is it okay if I just sort of try and
Yes.
real quick? And first of all, Mike is not a city employee. He's a resident like us. So we need to acknowledge that yeah, he can certainly take our feedback back to the city, but he's not in charge of it. So.
No. That's how.
So Mike, when the city is approving new like condominiums or townhouses or new housing, do they require each one of those to have a certain amount of affordable housing? And if they do they allow the developer to pay rather than create affordable housing.
So not quite yet, but I think we're getting there.
That's called inclusionary zoning.
Right, Denver has that, and they've had some growing pains implementing it, and look, like everything in government, it's a little bit of a balancing act, a trade-off, right? So you don't always get the pure form of the original intent. One thing I'll say first, because we have we have affordable housing developments that are currently either in pipeline or being constructed or recently constructed in Arvada, which is a huge win. And we should spike the ball and say, hell yeah, let's do more of that. Doesn't solve the problem. Doesn't even feel like it solves the problem, but it is a milestone that we have achieved. We've gotten the attention of development groups that do affordable housing. They look at Arvada as a place that's less hostile, so they want to do business here. But we have to make sure that we don't put roadblocks in front of them that are unnecessary. So whenever big community movements happen to stop an affordable housing development because they don't want it in their neighborhood, they want it in the city, but not next to their house. You have to understand that when you say you want affordable housing, that could mean that it's going to be in your neighborhood. And I think we should all make peace with that, because otherwise it's fucked up. I'm sorry, it's just not okay. One last thing about that. The city doesn't dictate what gets built where exactly, like who's going to build it. So they can't say this spot is going to be affordable housing unless they choose to subsidize the land purchase or help make the deal easier for a developer. There's a special case in there. But generally speaking, the comprehensive plan map is set up. You can build a certain thing in a certain place, but exactly who builds it is determined by the market. So I have to be interested enough to go into Arvada, build affordable housing if I own a company that does that, because I think I can afford to pay my employees and I won't lose my business by the time the project is completed. Go ahead.
And just to go back to questions about seniors, questions about working families, lower income families, service workers. This issue has definitely gotten the attention of our city leaders and the Arvada Chamber of Commerce, whose businesses are saying, we can't find employees to work here anymore because they can't afford to live here and they don't want to drive 40 minutes from Erie or Brighton or somewhere else. So the housing study, the plan that Taylor mentioned and this housing advisory committee, all of these concerns have been raised. Now what's going to happen? So some of the things that the city recognizes they need to do is, first of all, a lot of what John Marriott loves to call subsidized affordable housing, where it's income restricted, was built 20, 30 years ago using government subsidies like low-income housing tax credits. That's going to expire. And those poor people, like in Columbine Village, senior housing off of Marshall or Allison Street, their rents are going to go up if a private developer buys that, or the current owner says, I don't want to stay affordable anymore because I don't have to. So we're worried about a lot of people who are in affordable housing now being displaced, and a lot of them are seniors or disabled or very low income people. So the city recognizes that they have to preserve what we have. We have to convince those people to stay affordable another 30 years, but that takes getting more funding for them to do that. So you may hear, not this year, but next year, about some things that may be on the ballot, like different types of taxes or other ways to help get that. Now, I want to say our city, most of the money that we have for fixing our roads, for running everything, does not come from property taxes. I'm looking at a condo. It's $90 a year goes to Arvada in my property taxes. That's not a lot. Our city depends on sales taxes to run. Sales taxes from stuff that's sold in Arvada that goes or is delivered by Amazon to your house. They pay a sales tax. That's or a delivery fee. That's what Arvada needs to function. So that's why they love the business community. That's why anything that the Arvada Chamber says, that the business community says, they will listen, because that's our sugar daddy. That's where the city gets most of its money to operate. And those businesses need workers. So you're going to hear a lot over the next couple of years about workforce housing, which is a nicer way of saying it's affordable. It's affordable housing. Some of it might be subsidized. Some of it might just be bringing in a modular housing developer to start making small homes for West Arvada or areas where we can get more attainable housing for people who even want to buy something. It's not all rentals. People want to own, work their way up. So you're going to be hearing a lot of ideas. And we're going to, I try not, we don't have monthly meetings with our housing team, but we're going to be asking you to please speak up in the future as these ideas start coming before city council, because we want that comprehensive plan to change, to show what we want Arvada to look like for the next 10 to 15 years to address a lot of your concerns. And I'll shut up.
Oh,
Thank you, Mike.
That was great. And actually that gets me to what I wanted to make sure that I say if I don't say anything else. Don't take your foot off the gas. This group has been wildly effective at a lot of different things. And this opportunity with the comprehensive plan update, which once again, I don't know exactly when it is. It's going to be probably in the next 18 months or something. Is huge because it says who we are, where do we want to build, what do we want to build, and why, and who are we taking care of? Is it everybody, or is it just the people that allow us to make money? Or, as a city, you could think of us as a large business, right? We operate with expenses and we operate with revenue, and those things have to equal out. But if it doesn't create an environment where people want to be a part of the community in the city, or can be a part and complete, like not just work there, but actually live there, then we're going to fail as a business. It's not going to work long term. It's not sustainable. And the sustainable use of that is like, what will Arvada look like in 10 to 15 years if we ask for a lot of service industry, blue collar jobs to come into our city, but we don't provide anywhere for them to live? And they're commuting in and out, putting strain on our infrastructure, creating more traffic issues, making it harder to actually walk or bike or take any other type of mode other than the car to work. The whole thing doesn't work long term if we don't provide feedback to the city and say, look, these are our top priorities. If it's sustainability, long-term sustainability, if it's controlled and managed growth, if it's maintaining our character and charm, while also making sure that we're creating enough density to make urban living an option in all throughout the city in pockets, right? Because it's always going to be a little bit of a mix. You have to figure out what those are. I mean, I might even recommend APA creating a list of recommendations. This group catches a lot of attention. And if you provided a very specific list of principles, goals, expected outcomes, I don't know, however you want to call it. But if you provide that to the city and say, hey, we've thought about this, we have a lot of resources internal that know things. I'm a member. I'm happy to provide any information from you. I don't have to do it from a podium every time. And give that to the city. We're all human. Nobody's perfect. We don't have a perfect system today. We're not going to have a perfect system tomorrow. Ideally, we continue to improve upon it and we work together, even with developers sometimes.
So there's a lot more questions are coming in, but I also see by the clock on the clubhouse wall that we have actually hit our time limit.
Yeah, but we've taken questions throughout, so.
Track it for.
Yeah.
People have specific questions, because we talked a lot
Sure.
about the comprehensive plan. Now, if someone wants to know about what's going on this street corner.
So let's first look at the infrastructure one. So
Well, I think what I'm going to do
go ahead.
is share my screen and let you drive.
Okay, you're the boss. Come over here. So these resources are relatively new to the city. I think 2020 is when the city started providing this online interactive database to track projects. It is not perfect. I said earlier, there's a lot of things that could probably be improved, but it's a cool resource and it does provide information. Let's see here. There's development. All right, cool. City projects. All right. So this is current city projects in Arvada, and they're all color coded. So we can zoom in, and it's just like using Google Earth or Street View or something like that. And I've got color coded over here. So the red, these are watershed projects right here, okay? And so you could click on the actual project and it'll give you a reference number. There we go. All right. So this is project 22 SR 12. And it sometimes has a little bit of information, but doesn't usually have a lot. It's not always going to give you like the plans or anything like that. But now you have a specific project that you can email and ask the city for more information. And you can do this with anything. So there's bridge projects, there's drainage, parks and trails, traffic. So traffic's a big one. So we've got intersections. So here's an intersection right here. So this is right off of Sims and 80th. It looks like the contractor hasn't been selected yet and there's no notice to proceed. So the work hasn't started. But it is in design. And the construction industry, usually you have 3 phases: planning, design, and construction. Planning, obviously, we think this would be a good place for a trail, or we think this would be a good place for a sidewalk, because there is none. We plan that. Then you hire a consultant to do the design work, an engineering firm. My actual job is working for an engineering firm, and we do that type of work. Then you go to construction and you hire a contractor. So planner, consultant, contractor, and the contractor goes out and builds the project. What's cool about this database is you can see exactly what the Public Works and Parks Department of the city has on their plate at any given time. So it's really useful. The counterpart to that, and I find this one really cool because it's somewhat unique in the area, but it's an active map for all development in the city. And this one does include plans most of the time, depending on where it's at in the review and permitting process. So for an example, we have upcoming public hearings. I can't talk about those. I can show you where the tab is. There it is. We can't talk about those projects because that would be ex parte communication, which is very important that commissioners and city council members do not do.
So you're not allowed to talk about it till it comes to you.
That's right. And that's because I don't want to be in a position where I've formulated an opinion based on something, a conversation the public did not see happening. So anyway, that's another class. So these are applications that are currently under review all across the city.
Wow.
Somebody say what intersection you live near.
64th and McIntyre.
Oh, okay. This zooms in a little bit faster than I'd like it to. There's 58. Oh yeah, we're going further west. Sorry, it's tiny on the screen over here. Another ridge. There we go. All right. So which one are you looking at that's in the city of Arvada?
Yeah, because it won't show unincorporated Jefferson County projects.
64th and McIntyre is Arvada.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But just outside of it, there's a project.
Right.
We certainly have heard a fair amount about it. So, all right. So right there at 64th and McIntyre, it looks like there's a shopping center application and you can read about it. There's a narrative about the project. It looks like just west of there, there's another development. This is a series of townhomes, and you can click on the presentation. You can actually make this bigger so you can see the site plans. Just north of it, there's another project. It looks like it's a loading dock expansion. But anyway, the point on this is that you have at your fingertips a number of projects. Oh, this is one that we heard a lot about, Howard Ranch. That was in the newspaper a couple times, right? That one is actually really cool. There's a lot of mixed use in it, or mixed housing types. I don't know if any of you followed that, but it has smaller condominiums and also single family detached products. Yes. So it's a mix. This is a very useful website, 15 minutes.
This time I mean it.
Yes, ma'am. I believe you, Ms. Pat. So you can also go to under construction. So this is helpful if you drive by an intersection and you say, oh my God, what is that? Who approved that? Well, you can actually look at what's under construction currently. And what's nice about this is you see finalized plans, right? So you see the plans that are fully compliant with code and the 100% design set that the city requires before you move forward with construction. So I think, and then the long range planning, I don't think they've updated that yet, but these tools are available for anybody. And what I would like to see as a planning commissioner, and I'm sure city council would appreciate this as well, is see the public come to the meetings. And I feel bad when members of the public feel like they were completely taken for a ride and they don't have any resources and they have no idea how we got where we are with a project. And it just feels like you're speaking to overlords that control your lives. This is for you. We could do a better job at the city of making sure that people understand it's available. Go ahead.
Quick question. Does city council, city manager, those requirements that if they're compliant with all of these things, it moves forward? Does it take into consideration water usage? And does it take into consideration the impact on traffic in that particular area and surrounding area?
Each one is specific to the needs. So the approval criteria is going to be different depending on what type of variance is being requested. But generally, like one that's on all of them is it in somehow majorly in conflict with the comprehensive plan. That could be interpreted a lot of different ways. It's best that we're really specific if we're going to vote no, for example, on something.
But Mike,
You say
all
what?
the stuff you said, 94% doesn't even come to you. So
Yes.
94% that's administratively approved. Who's keeping track of all the water that those projects are using to make sure we're not going to run out of water?
And the
Sure.
traffic impact, I mean,
So-
they just had to, right out here, they just had to expand it. They just built all that. They're building more. We have
So-
small roads with big condos.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And in general, for most development projects, you have a traffic impact study that's done. Usually that's done by the applicant. They hire an engineer and they have to produce a traffic impact study that meets the city's requirements, and the city engineer directs that. And we actually do get projects. This is funny, it's rare, but we get projects on planning commission where staff recommends denial. But the applicant still has the right to make the appointment and go before city council and planning commission. But they may have really failed significantly on one of these criteria. And staff will say, we recommend you deny this project. It's up to you. We did that to a development that was Krispy Kreme in Newtown, right by Ruby Tuesdays. And the applicant was insistent that Arvada was going to make all kinds of tax revenue and it was going to be great. Everybody loves Krispy Kreme, but that area is supposed to be transitioning into more people-focused and walkable area, right? It's a sub-area plan Patty and Rob have been working on. And it was going to be a building surrounded by drive-through, 2 lanes. So a moat of cars around the Krispy Kreme. I like Krispy Kreme. I don't have anything against them, but it was outrageous that they thought that would make sense. And the city recommended denying it, even though we got a chance to review it. We did deny it. But anyway, go ahead.
So Mike, but if you look at all those arrows,
Yeah.
each one is a project and that developer does a
Right.
little traffic study around a
Yes.
certain radius of their project. But who the heck is adding up all those
Right.
cars from all those different projects or all the water usage from all the different projects? Not piece by piece, but who's
Right.
adding the cumulative to make sure it's sustainable?
And there are efforts at work within the city. The transportation systems plan is one of them that's looking at traffic comprehensively. I have to say that I'm involved in that. I'm leading that study actually with my engineering firm. I work for the city in that capacity. So I can't talk a lot about it, but that is what you're talking about is absolutely being tabulated, and it's being calculated using multiple tools to look at it at a macro and a micro level to understand the impacts of traffic and mobility throughout Arvada.
2 questions. First, I was involved with a company that was trying to bring more multimodal transportation to Arvada with e-bikes, e-scooters. And that seems to be a progressive aspect of development now across the country, across the world. Is Arvada taking more of a comprehensive look at multimodal transportation as it looks at development to see that it's not only automobile reliant, but that it is congruent with multimodal?
Yeah, what I'd say here is that this multimodal transportation in the city has been a priority for a long time. That's true today. If you look at the comprehensive plan, I'll just pull that up. Oh, I think I actually just X out of it, but here we go. The comprehensive plan, the document, not just the map. There's a whole chapter in 2014 that actually spells out the specific goals and aspirations around multimodal access and infrastructure. That's 10 years old. Right, so.
I read that whole study in order to make a proposal back to the city about why you need to support this. It's in your own plans.
So
but people didn't even know that on the city.
So the city actually did, and I wasn't part of this, so I could speak to it freely, but they did a multimodal micro transportation study recently. I think that was led by a company called Tool. Great study, a lot of really good information in there, but they had pilot programs for the e-bikes and e-scooters, and they observed how they were being used. They used INRIX data, it's like cell phone data. I don't know if you know this, but your phone is a tracking device, and it is absolutely shared for the highest bidder all the time. They don't know that your name is attached to your dot, but they see your dot. Anyway, those types of data collection centers and resources are used to see how people are engaging with microtransit, and how it could potentially solve first last mile challenges around G-line stations, or how it could help connect folks that maybe don't have cars to resources that aren't far away from them. Arvada isn't all super rural. So the city is interested. The new document, I don't know if you've seen that one, but I'm happy I can add that, Taylor, to the list. The micro mobility study, I think is what it's called. And you can check that out. It was a pretty comprehensive effort from 2 years ago, I think.
I think the missing element that I'm seeing from a 30,000 foot perspective is that the media used to play a role, just like they used to follow the police blotter and talk about crime. They should be following these kind of tools to educate the public when the city doesn't have the staff or the wherewithal to keep all of the residents informed about all the development that's about to happen or is happening. That's surprising us. The media is not playing the role they need to be playing. And so we need to be our own media.
Right.
So that's where help us.
How many
guide us how we can, that Speak Up Arvada is helpful.
So you've been to Speak Up.
Yeah.
So I would point everybody to Speak Up Arvada. Once again, not perfect, but it's a good resource, and it is the city's tool to really get in front of citizens easily. So I can just go to the website. I can look up any of the current projects. We have surveys that the city puts out on Speak Up Arvada to test projects, and they can meetings and events and all that sort of thing. The city does have a very robust communications department. 5 minutes. Understood. And they're charged. One of the things they're charged with is helping the public to understand all the different things that are happening with the city. And that's a big job.
It is.
Right. Especially projects that are specifically driven by public input. So like the micromobility study, I know that they got a bunch of survey material back on how people might or might not use scooters. People were frustrated that we had scooters in areas where there are no sidewalks. So when your scooter battery goes dead, it's effectively in the middle of the street.
Yep.
Right? Well, now we know that because it came up as a big issue on all these little surveys, and that is how the kind of the process works. We're kind of all on this journey together. So if you put us all in like an imaginary bus, right? As long as we're communicating and we're talking, I think we're going to be okay. But we're going to miss stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We have 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 50 seconds left.
So the comprehensive plan, when they get ready to do that, they can also change the 1,000 feet rule.
I think that's a part of the land development code, but that could be changed as a part of an update. I believe if council was motivated to do that, or if staff felt it was necessary based on enough comments.
Because what I also heard you say is public hearings. The only thing you're really looking for is new factual data, not opinions.
Yes.
And
we hear it's your time whenever you go up to speak.
Right, but if they don't care that 99% of the people don't want their view blocked. I question whether they're really representing their people.
And that's it's a fair question to have. Blocking a view is not codified in the land development code or the comprehensive plan.
That was just an example.
Yeah,
Right.
but so that's where it all goes back to the rules, because we have to have fair application of the rules for anybody that wants to apply within the city. And those rules protect affordable housing just like they protect big box retail.
Yeah.
And it's mixed bag. I think somebody was asking a question on the speaker. Maybe not.
Or it's sort of related, like, so it seems like that criteria that you mentioned is incredibly important. So how is that built? How's that checklist like determined? Is it by project? Is it static? Like this type of project or this type of request for variance goes through this list? It doesn't include things like equity and
well,
that as well, or is it just strictly like those harder sciences like business and money that's gonna come in and things that.
Well, it has to be based on things that are measurable.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we would be.
Equity can be measured, so, but in different ways.
Not saying it can't be, but I'm just saying in general.
I'm just wondering if it's part of that and how those lists are created and.
Right, so they're codified, they're in the land development code. So if you're gonna go 20% over on a particular thing, I use the example of a fence, right? So a fence code is 6 foot. If you want to do a 10-foot, well, you're coming to planning commission. And we have had that project before, which seems ridiculous, but either way, we're gonna have a discussion on whether or not there is substantial hardship that would allow this project to exist. This 8-foot fence instead of a 6-foot fence, and it's impractical to do the 6-foot fence that's in code. So the criteria changes based on the specific thing that's being approved or not approved as a variance.
For every specific type of thing.
Oh yeah, no, it's not made up on the fly. Yeah, no, so land development code is gonna have everything specified, like how tall a building, how wide a street, or a sidewalk or anything. And if you're out of compliance, there's gonna be a specific approval of being out of compliance. And that is the approval criteria. An item in there, I think I mentioned this earlier, is it does not conflict with the comprehensive plans, the goals and intent of the comprehensive plan. That is very often used as a very broad conflict, right? Because that could mean a lot of things. Because the comprehensive plan talks about equity, it talks about diversity, it talks about sustainability in a very goals fashion. So it becomes a little bit of a gray area. And for planning commissioners, that's really hard because we're not elected, we're appointed. So we're representing the code first, we're not representing the people. However, planning commission makes a recommendation to city council. We are not the final rule on anything other than I think sign code. That's us exclusively. City council is going to make the final ruling on whatever it is that they're seeing. And they have more authority to interpret than we do. And so that's where those conversations maybe are more fruitful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so talking in front of the here,
Yeah.
planning commission isn't the last time somebody has something to say.
Never, unless it's a sign code thing, which is super rare and we hardly ever see sign code and it's almost not even relevant, but
So all those criteria lists are in that.
they're in the packet too. Maybe one last final thing.
Charge here.
It's time to bring out the hook.
Where's the city website? Did we have that, Taylor?
I think it's the last.
Uh-oh. Well, help me out if you can drive, I'll just.
Recommendations for somebody who wants to learn more about this area.
Oh, yeah, I can help you out with that. So if we can go to the city website, since planning commission and everything we're talking about, this is where you see all the upcoming meetings and you can see our packets, which include the approval criteria or the whether or not things comply and the recommendations from staff. So if we go to, you can search planning commission at the top there, jump to, yeah. Same thing for city council. This is the new website we rolled out less than a year ago, and it's actually a really nice upgrade. So if you click on planning commission there, it should take us. I just said how great this is and now I'm lost. It's because we're in the documents section of the city website. In general, if you go to the main root folder website and you type in planning commission or city council, it'll take you to the calendar and you can click on any meeting. We meet twice a month. And on the meeting, on the calendar meeting, there'll be a little icon to click on the agenda. And the agenda is going to include our packets, which has all of our information that we're reviewing. So you can see what we see. There's no mystery curtain or man behind the curtain.
Are the meetings at a specific, every other Tuesday or whatever?
Yeah, they're on Tuesdays. I think it's the first Tuesday and the third Tuesday of the month. We don't always meet if there's not a project to review. We don't just sit there for fun. What's nice about the meetings, and I can do this at a later date, the fundamentals of public meetings so that everybody knows what's going on. We have a thing that we read every time and everybody's eyes glaze over. I try and make it a little bit more approachable. Public meetings are complicated. They follow Robert's Rules of Order. And it's hard to, if you're not in it, to understand when you can say your opinion about whatever it is that you're there to talk about. I could do a whole meeting on that later.
So the opportunities to comment, Mike's talking about planning commission. There's also city council meetings
Right.
where, as many of you know, you have 3 minutes at the beginning or 5 minutes at the end to make a public comment about anything you want to address city council. So that's another opportunity. And that's at business meetings, which are usually the first and third Monday of every month. So you can comment about anything for 3 minutes or 5 minutes at a business meeting to city council as well.
If we write to Speak Up Arvada, does that get to, who pays attention to that?
Speak Up Arvada is the communication or the communications department. I think that's what they call our community outreach. So they collect information from Speak Up Arvada, and that's shared with staff. It's curated. It
Doesn't necessarily go to council. Though.
No. Well, the council might have it in a workshop or something, but it's not going to show up in their meeting. Like we heard these 3 comments this week on Speak Up Arvada. It'll usually be curated and put into a report from the community outreach department. Whenever you write a comment about a specific project, because you've seen it on the city website, and say, I'm writing this email to comment on this development and I have this particular issue, and you type it up, we get that in our packet every single time. I have a stack of emails for a lot of different projects that we receive and that we are required to read. And they're a part of the public input. So just like we're required to sit down and listen to any comments that are said for 3 minutes, we're required to read those emails as well. And they become a part of the public record. I know we've gone over that.
Well, I apologize. I know people on Zoom had more questions too, so we may someday have a follow-up if Mike's willing to do that.
Anytime.
And we may have to wait till after election season's over, but, oh yeah, Taylor.
Well, and what we're going to be doing here too is we're going to be posting the Zoom of this meeting, the recording of this meeting, be posted on our YouTube channel. We're going to create a document. We could provide links to that in Facebook and on our website.
And that call to action too.
Yeah, and so we'll try and distribute this information. Clearly, we could spend hours talking about this, and we have run out of time today. But I want to thank you for coming and talking to us, and we'll have you back again. Is there anything else we need to do, or we just at this point announce the meeting is over?
Yay!
Thank you all for attending.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah, same here. Stay
Sorry for the meandering, but I felt like it was a lot to cover anyway.